Hello everybody! Russian is often considered to be one of the hardest languages to learn. The Foreign Service Institute, which is like the school for American diplomats, gives Russian a difficulty rating of 4 out of 5. But what exactly makes Russian so hard for speakers of English and other languages to learn? That's what I'm going to discuss in today's video. The first thing that a student of Russian might find difficult is the alphabet. It's not the hardest writing system to learn, especially compared to Chinese or Japanese, but if someone is used to languages that use the Latin alphabet, like French or Spanish, it certainly can look intimidating. Even after you've mastered the alphabet in its printed form, you'll still have to face the fact that most Russians write in cursive, which is a challenge all of its own. Once you have the letters down and try sounding out some of your first words, you'll find that letters can come in an order in which you would never see them in English. Even basic words like здравствуйте and до свидания can be a mouthful. It's like the language is trying to scare off those who are not fully committed and are not prepared for the challenges that lie ahead. The next obstacle to overcome is cases. Russian, like many other languages in Eastern Europe and elsewhere in the world, has a fun little thing called cases. Russian distinguishes at least 6 different cases. In short, cases show the role that a person or thing plays in a sentence and usually comes in the form of an ending on the word. For example, this is a book, это книга. I see a book, я вижу книгу. The name of the book, название книги. With the book, с книгой. In the book, в книге, etc. Each verb and preposition is followed by a specific case, and you just have to remember which one it is and how to put the endings on the adjectives and nouns that follow. English had a similar system of cases over 1,000 years ago, but it has since been lost. The only remnant of it is in our pronouns, like how we say, I see him, or I went with her, instead of I see he, and I went with she. Russian also distinguishes 3 different genders. Everything in the language, including inanimate objects, are either a he, a she, or an it. Where's my computer? There he is. Where's my book? There she is. Where's my letter? There it is. A computer is a he, a book is a she, and a letter is an it. You just have to remember what thing is which gender, although you can usually guess which one it is by the ending of the word. Russian numbers are a big hairy beast all of their own. I'm not even going to try to explain those here. I might do it in another video. In my last video, I mentioned how Russians like to categorize watermelons as a type of berry. In addition to that, I've found that the Russian language categorizes a lot of things differently from how we do in English. For example, the second time I went to Russia, not as a missionary, I went to a swimming pool, and like any rational person would do, I brought my swimsuit. After registering with the fitness center and passing a brief medical exam, I was finally free to jump into the swimming pool and swim to my heart's content. Or was I? Right as I was about to jump into the pool, this lifeguard lady stopped me and said that I had to wear a swimsuit to use the pool. I stopped, looked down at my swimsuit, and looked back up at her and said, I am wearing a swimsuit. She said, that's not a swimsuit, those are shorts. I said, this is a swimsuit. It was designed for absolutely nothing other than to be worn while swimming. It's a swimsuit. She continued to insist that they were shorts and not a swimsuit. She said she'd let me wear them this one time, but next time I'd better be wearing a swimsuit. With my world turned upside down, I proceeded to enter the pool. I saw this other guy swimming there and I decided to get a second opinion. I asked him, what would you call what I'm wearing? Shorts. I guess the problem wasn't the stupid lady after all. It was the stupid foreigner that didn't know the exact semantic range of the words shorty and plavki. As time went on, I continued to come across other words that did not have the exact same meaning as their English equivalents. One evening, the door to mine and my wife's apartment was closed but not locked. My wife told me to close the door. I looked at it and said, it is closed. She looked at it and said, no it isn't. Close it with the lock. So, lock it? Whatever, just close it. Apparently the word that I had learned for lock, zaperets, has a slightly different meaning than it does in English. And you would just say close, zakrit, for either close or lock. It's the same way with butter, which is considered to be a type of oil, cream oil, and bowls, which are called plates, deep plates to be specific. On the other hand, with other things, Russian can actually be pretty specific. For example, there is no convenient word for hat in Russian. What we would call a hat, they would either call a kepka, a shlyapa, or a shapka. You can put these in a category called headwear, but you would usually specify what kind of headwear you are wearing. Likewise, there is no word for blue. The sky is goluboy and the sea is sinyi. They are 2 different colors. There is also no word for cat. A cat is either a koshka or a kot. If you say to someone, "What a cute koshka you have," they might correct you and say, "This is not a koshka, he is a kot." To top it off, there is no word for go in Russian. There's a different word for it whether you're walking or using some kind of transportation, just going there or going there and back, whether you're describing the moment you leave or whether you're in the process. It gets pretty hairy. Russian seems to be missing a few words that we say in English. For example, there's no easy way to say excited. You can say "Я не могу дождаться" or "Я в восторге." If you look up excited in a dictionary, you'll get the word возбужденный, and that means something more like aroused, which you wouldn't want to just throw around. Or maybe you would. Russians also say certain words that are hard to translate into English. I've had students ask me how to say атмосферно in English. В этом ресторане очень атмосферно. It's very atmospheric in this restaurant. Was I supposed to bring my barometer? On my mission, I kept hearing the word банальный. Он такой банальный. I finally looked it up in my little dictionary and it translated to, surprise, surprise, banal. I was like, yeah, I still don't know what that means. So I asked someone to explain it to me, and apparently it describes someone who never comes up with their own ideas. They just do what everyone else does, kind of like unoriginal. There were a few words that I learned in Russian before I learned them in English, because for whatever reason, I had never heard someone refer to those things by name in English, yet they do all the time in Russian. When you're at a toll booth, the Schlagbaum goes up and lets you through. So how do you say Schlagbaum in English? I looked it up in my little dictionary and it wasn't there. Since missionaries couldn't use the internet, I had to wait over a year until I finished my mission so that I could look it up. Apparently it translates to boom gate, but let's be real, who's ever heard of a boom gate? Some other examples include smorodina and turniket. I hope I didn't scare anyone away from learning Russian. It truly is a fascinating language, and there's a certain level of satisfaction that comes from using all those cases and numbers correctly for the first time. If you're interested in learning either Russian or English, feel free to look me up on italki and book a lesson with me. I'll leave a link to my italki page in the description. That's about it for this video. See you next time.